Candles were an important part of 18th century life. At James Townsend & Son, we sell a candle making kit. Thought today we would use that kit and make some beeswax candles. Let's take a look at the things that come in the candle making kit. Each kit comes with a 6 candle mold. The kits also come with 2 pounds of beeswax in the 1 pound blocks. There's also included the candle making booklet, which has all the information you need for making candles. And last but not least, the candle wicking. There's plenty in here. So you're going to need a few other items to be able to make these candles. You're going to need to be able to melt your candle wax. Today we're going to use a slow cooker. You're going to need something to tie the wicks to out of the top of the mold. So I've got a stick here for that. We're going to need something to pour the wax out of our molten batch here and into the mold. So I've got either you can use something like a tin cup, or you could use a wooden ladle or something similar. You're going to need some type of mold release. Here I've got a very simple cooking spray that I got at the grocery store. You're going to need some sort of scissors. You're going to spill wax when you do this project, I can guarantee it. So you'll want to cover your work surface with paper or with a cloth so you don't get wax all over your work table. You'll also want to put something on the floor, a drop cloth or papers on the floor, because undoubtedly some of the wax is going to get on the floor. So our very first step is we're going to take our mold out. We're going to make sure the mold doesn't have any dents or any pieces of solder on the inside of the tube that'll keep the candles from pulling out. The next thing we want to do is to oil this mold. So all we're going to do is shoot just a little bit of oil into each one of these cavities. Just one little shot like that is enough. So after we've oiled our molds, it's time to put the wicks in. And here's a pre-strung one. You can see that the wick starts at the top here and goes down one tube, comes out the bottom, and goes back up the other tube. So this is one wick that goes between 2 different candles. We're going to look at the bottoms here. We're going to make sure that the bottom of the tube has a nice regular and round hole that the wick can get through. And if the hole is a little small, because each one of these is made by hand and they're a little different, you can use a stab awl or a nail or something similar to make sure that the holes are the right size for these wicks to go through. Just to get the wick through and not a whole lot more. So to get the wicks to go through the holes properly, it can be made much easier by making sure that the wicks are already pre-waxed. To get the wick into these molds can be very difficult. And here I've got a tiny copper wire. And I've bent a tiny hook in the bottom. And this little tool makes it a lot easier. I'm going to place it in the bottom of the first tube and put it all the way up through the top. As it comes out here, I'm going to take my pre-waxed wick and I'm going to pierce the wick with the hook about 1 inch from the end. Then we can just pull it right through the mold and right through the bottom. And without even disconnecting that, we can just send the other end of the hook right up through the other tube. We have to be careful when we get to this bottom end that the hook doesn't catch at the edge and that the wick goes through smoothly, so you might have to gently finesse that through. And we can just pull that wick right up through this other side. And there we have both the ends of the wick coming up out of the mold. So normally once we've got these wicks up, we would tie them to a stick, something like we've done on this mold here. Tying them to the stick can be very difficult. So we've devised this other method where we use a sharpened wire instead. It's much faster. We've just got a piece of coat hanger here. We've sharpened the end, and you can just pierce your wick right through the middle of it with this wire. You want to make sure not to poke yourself because those can get pretty sharp. And we can let this bend a little bit. Using these wires also makes it much easier. It gives us a lot more room to be able to pour the wax in here at the edge between there. If there's a big stick here, it's really hard to hit the hole with the wax. So after we've got the wicks in place with the wires, we need to make sure to plug up these bottom holes in your mold or else the wax will come out. So we're going to plug up the holes with these beeswax blobs here. Our wax only needs to be to 145, 150 degrees or so to pour it. The cooler the wax is as we pour it in, the better. The less shrinkage we get, it's a safer thing to work with, so it wouldn't burn you so bad if it got on you or spills. So there's a lot of different reasons why to use the right temperatures. Another thing to keep our area clean, especially since we're going to be pouring wax right on this, is got a cookie sheet here that'll help keep our work surface clean. Here's our tin cup we're going to use to pour our candle wax with. I'm just going to dip it in here, get it about half full or so, and start filling up my molds. One of the tricks on this is to take your time, get that wax to pour right into the cavity. Another thing to remember is if your ladle or your cup gets empty and it empties as you're pouring, and you have to refill it and pour it again, you'll have a little line in your candle. Almost looks like a little crack. So you want to make sure as your ladle or your cup gets empty that you fill it up before you run out while you're pouring a candle. So as our candles start to cool, we have that little shrink down in the center. We're just going to take and top those up just a touch, fill in that shrinkage, each one of those candles. It'll shrink down a little bit more, but it won't matter at that point. As soon as we can turn this mold upside down, then it's time to cut these wicks. If you don't cut them now, they'll start to pull away and it might cause you trouble later on. So I'm going to snip those. These can take quite a while to cool off, several hours. Sometimes in warmer weather, it might take overnight to get these to cool off enough. If they cool off too rapidly, if you're in really cool weather, or you get impatient and you put them in the freezer, you can crack your candles if they cool off too fast. As you can see here, the wax has cooled down enough that it's separated well from the edge. And now we're going to pull these out. We got a couple tricks with this. If we haven't overpoured this mold, if you have overpoured, you need to score around the candles to make sure that they're separated from the block, and then you can try pulling them out. If we've underpoured like this, or poured right up to the edge, one of the things we can do is to try to push the candle. Instead of pulling it out right away, we can push it down, try to separate that candle from the edge of its mold. So I'm going to leave the wire because it'll help me grab onto this wick. But you can just push this and push very easily. You can see now it's flexing in the mold. There. No. So each one of them pushed down, so they should pull out real easily now. So that little push down method really works well. There's likely going to be some mold release oil still stuck to your candle, so you want to wipe them down. And these candles turned out very nicely. No cracks. Super looking candles. And we will just snip the ends off so we don't have any wick around the bottom. And there we are. We've got our six candles out of the mold. Very little trouble. And then we want to make sure that if we're going to re-pour to get this all cleaned out and ready, even if you're not going to re-pour, you want this mold ready for the use next time. So you probably even want to store this with a shot of oil in each one of these tubes so it doesn't get any rust or anything like that down in the tubes, to make it easy to use the next time you get this mold out and ready to make more candles. So there you have it. We've made beeswax candles from our mold here, simple beeswax candles. We also have the Making Candles booklet. It comes with the kit, or you can get it separately. This little booklet is chock full of information, historical information about what types of waxes, different methods for making candles, how to make your candles last longer, lots of useful information about mixing the waxes. So if you want a lot more information about making candles, you can get this in the kit, or it's available separately in our catalog on our website. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook.